What's up, guys? So in today's video, I want to share with you 3 things you must know before running a 200-mile race. My name is Showe. I've done 3 200-mile races. I've actually crewed another one. So I've been at 4 200-mile races, and I have seen it from both sides, the runner's perspective and then also the crew perspective, which is really helpful to know both sides how to tackle this race. And a 200-mile race, they're becoming more popular, still not very popular, but there are hundreds of people doing them nowadays, especially with a company called Destination Trail Races. I mean, they have like 200 people at each of their 3 200-mile races: the Tahoe 200, Bigfoot 200, and then Moab 240. They just came out with the 300-miler, which is crazy, but we're talking about 200-mile races in this video. And this video idea was really sparked because just 2 weekends ago, I was in Moab, Utah, crewing a friend for the Moab 240, and I just learned so much. And it really is a difficult race. I mean, of course it's difficult, right? But there's so much complexity with it being 200 miles. And so I really distilled it down to 3 key things that you need to know before running a 200-mile race. And so the first one is you must be patient. You must be patient. A 200-mile race is not just double the length of an 100-mile race, because typically when you get to the end of a 100-mile race, you are exhausted and you're broken. But you have to go 200 miles, so 100 more miles. And especially when your body's beat down, and then most of these courses have a ton of elevation gain, it's going to take some more time. And so you have to be patient in the process. I mean, I experienced this for sure. My first 200-mile race, the Tahoe 200 in 2023, when about 40 miles into the race, 50 miles into the race, I forgot to put on my Salty Britches chafing lube. And so I started chafing really bad and I was miserable. And to make matters worse, on my watch, on my Coros, it told me the amount of distance that I had left on the screen with the navigation, because you have to follow a GPX file, which is essentially like a route, helps you stay on the course. But on this section of the watch, it told me I had 140, 160 miles left to go at different points. And it was demoralizing. And to the point where I have a video, there's a video, I'll have my editor throw it in there in this video, where there was a point in my race where I stopped and I was like, man, when I signed up for this, I had no clue how long it was going to take. But when I signed up for this, I didn't realize how long it was going to take. And that's just the truth. I had no idea how long this race was going to take when I signed up for it. And so that is one thing. You have to be patient when you do a 200-mile race. And now the second thing, the second encouragement, similar to the first, but it's that anything can happen in a 200-mile race. Since the distance is so long, it's not if something is going to go wrong, it's what is going to go wrong. And so you really have to just be mentally prepared, not expecting something to go wrong, but just be open to the fact that it probably will, and tell your crew so that when hardship comes up, you're not scrambling. Your crew isn't phased because they expected it. For example, when I was at the Moab 240 crewing for my friend Tristan, we went to bed the first night because it starts at noon. It's a little bit different of a race. We went to bed when he was around mile 30 miles in. And we woke up in the middle of the night. I woke up and I checked the tracker and he wasn't further beyond 30. So 2 hours had passed and he was still at the 30-mile aid station. And I talked to my friend Jake, one of my athletes who is also out there helping me pace Tristan. And he showed me the aid station map, and there were like 30 people at this single aid station out of the 200 plus people in this race, which is a ton. 30 people at a single aid station when it's beyond the first 1 or 2 aid stations is a lot. And so I looked at it and I was like, oh, that can't be right. There's got to be something wrong with the tracker. And so we went to bed, and I woke up to text from my athlete a couple hours earlier saying that he got sick at that aid station because of the heat or something, heat exhaustion or something he drank, and he was throwing up at mile 30. And he stayed at that aid station for 4 hours, which is crazy. But thankfully, the good thing about a 200-mile race is the aid station cutoffs are very generous. And so he was able to throw up, get over it, get some sleep, and then attack the next section. Now, he got to the next section and was pretty close. I mean, he barely made the cutoff. I think he made the cutoff by 15 minutes, but he kept going. He kept going. He didn't give up. He had no quit in him. And through the encouragement of some of the other runners, they helped him to push through and keep going when he wanted to give up. And that is so imperative to know that anything can happen. It's such a long race that you can experience something like that where you're stuck in an aid station for 4 hours trying to figure out a problem and then keep going and still finish the race. Because if he had thought in his mind that, oh, my race is over, I'm only 30 miles in to a 240-mile race, there's no way, he wouldn't have finished. And he ended up finishing the race for the first time, becoming a 200-mile finisher, which is amazing. But it wouldn't have happened if he quit. Another example of this is during my Tahoe 200 race. I was 100 miles in and I was just exhausted. I was done. I had chafed. I was having the worst day ever. I was just wanting to give up. I'd rather, stop in my mind because of the pain I was experiencing. But one of my crew members told me, Jeremy Miller, one of my great friends, he told me, man, dude, you can stay here, you can sleep for a couple hours and still finish. Because I was so ahead of the cutoffs at that time. I think I could have stayed 8 hours at this one aid station and still made the cutoffs. And so that's an encouragement to you that anything can happen. Even when things go wrong in a 200-mile race, you still typically have time to recover and get back after it. Now, the third thing is that for a 200-mile race, your crew is imperative. It's so important, especially for your first time completing a 200-mile race. Your crew is just so important. And I'll give you an example. My friend Tristan found out last year that he got off the wait list into the race about a week before the race. And at this point, he didn't think he was getting in. So he was scrambling, trying to get things done, trying to get things ready for him to be able to get into this race. He had just a few friends crew him who had no clue what they were doing. Guys, if you're watching this, I've got so much respect for you helping out Tristan with whatever he needed. But you had no clue what you're doing. And that's okay, because they had never done a 200-mile race before. And so what ended up happening was they were very disorganized. They didn't have the proper gear, proper nutrition that Tristan needed. And Tristan ended up missing a cutoff 180 miles into a race. Now think about this. You're 180 miles into a race. You're multiple days into this race. You're exhausted. And you come up 60 miles short of this 240-mile race. So what is that? You get 3/4 the way there. It's like in a marathon, if you got to, 18, a little bit further than 18 miles in, you would be pissed, wouldn't you? It would suck, wouldn't it? Right? But the thing is, if Tristan had the right crew with the right experience, that wouldn't have happened. And that's a clear example of what happened this year. Tristan came into the race. He knew he needed some expert guidance, so he hired me because I had done the 200s. I had done 3 200-mile races, so I knew the lay of the land. I knew how to crew someone for what the runner needs because I was in the runner's perspective, and I was able to assemble the crew and get him exactly what he needed throughout the entire race. And yeah, there were mix-ups and things like that. And also, by the way, the other crew members helped out a ton. I am not claiming the sole responsibility for him being able to finish. But my expertise got us a sprinter van so that he could sleep in. We always had fuel for him. I even packed extra fuel in case he didn't buy enough gels leading up to the race. Sure enough, he didn't. So he used a bunch of my fuel. We got him bars and stuff at the grocery store leading up to the race. We also had pacers prepared with running vests, water bottles, fuel, all the required gear for a 200-mile race. And so that way he was able to finish. But the year before he wasn't, because he didn't have things in order, because he didn't have an experienced crew. Now for me, last year, I didn't have an experienced crew who had done 200-mile races. Thankfully though, I did have people experienced in the ultra running scene who had done some races before, so they were able to anticipate. But still, I mean, for them, I'm sure if you would ask them, it would have been extremely helpful to have someone who has done a 200-mile race there with them. And so that is the main 3 things for a 200-mile race. The main 3 things you need to know before a 200-mile race. You must be patient. Anything can happen, and your crew is imperative. Guys, I hope this video helped you. Send it to someone who's training for a 200-mile race and comment below what topics you want me to cover on this channel. Until then, I'll see ya and go run your race.